It's Wednesday morning for your NBL Now, and I've got a very special surprise for everybody. We've heard from our experts, but now we're going to the ultimate expert, because when it comes to playing games, everything we want to talk about, we're going to the best. And Adam Forde, coach of the Cairns Taipans, joins me. Fordey, thanks for jumping on, man. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Very appreciative of the kind intro. Thank you.
Now, we'll start, obviously, the game last night, the Seeding Qualifier. That's the big one we're going to break down. But firstly, obviously, the Taipan season is done and dusted now. The ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, some really, really strong wins in there to finish the season. But now you've had a couple of days, I think, to maybe let it all sink in. What do you take out of it?
One thing, and I know I've said it throughout the season, and hand on heart, I swear on it now, is that this has probably been one of the most enjoyable groups that I've been involved with. When you talk about adversity and how you manage that, and then your true character, comes out when things are going a bit rough. And that's where, again, I credit everyone on the team that, their resolve and their determination to come out the other side and be better for it was, really remarkable. And that's, again, a testament to those guys. Pedro was in the gym early from day one, and whether we're winning or losing, whether he was injured or not, he still remained with a very high work ethic. So that's one example where a guy didn't want to take a shortcut. And I can go through the entire team list, but, that's one thing that I did enjoy the company of these guys. It wasn't a season where obviously we could get a little bit of momentum and build on something, but it was cool that we turn of the new year were able to get some wins and some pretty good wins on the road too. And again, that's just an example there of how cool those guys were to work with.
Can you give the fans perhaps a little bit of a snapshot of what a week like this would be like for a team that's not in the finals? Obviously, you'd be watching the games that are still playing. If you're not on holiday already, a lot of players are playing elsewhere. But in terms of trying to break down and reflect on the season, do you go back and look at, because it was round 3 where all the injuries kicked off, or even right back to the start of it, but that Tanner Groves injury and Taron Armstrong, do you break it down week by week? How does it all go when you take the deep breath with management and just try and look at the season and how to improve in years coming up?
Well, I think when you start losing 15 games in a row, your breakdowns start a little bit earlier in the season than you would if the conclusion of your season happened now, where you're still in contention for a play-in. So it's been a bit of a slow burn, but you always want to obviously reevaluate and reassess and realign. You don't want to completely throw everything out and say, well, everything was a disaster, because there were some things that worked in our favor. And Alex Higgins-Titcher was one where the silver lining of a injury-riddled season is here is a guy that took an opportunity, very similar to Ben Air back when 4 years ago when we had all the injuries and he got his opportunity. There's another guy there, right, when we talk about our player evaluation and how we assess talent. We got some tick boxes there, naturally trying to cover some injuries and how we do that moving forward. What players we have lined up, the depth charts, what are available and who's available was something we'll have to assess and look at. But it's a real breakdown of high performance and coaching staff and head coaching and play group. And the good thing is our season wraps up a little bit earlier than the rest of the seasons in the world, so it gives you some more time to assess, reevaluate. But also, you don't want to get caught up too much trying to break down the process, because it is a basketball game. It's a simple game. Sometimes you just need to find some simple answers to some simple solutions to get you big results.
We are going to talk about that seeding qualifier from last night, but quickly, because we do talk about you every single year, you've managed to go and find a talent that maybe people have overlooked, and you've given them a chance, or you've given them an environment to thrive. Higgins-Titcher is the example this year. We saw it with Bull Qual. We saw it with Keanu Pinder. The list goes on, Ben Air. What do you look for when you're recruiting, and how do you always seem to find that one player that other teams maybe looked over? Or is it more about the environment that you create in Cairns that you just know certain people will thrive in it?
Yeah, it's a tough one to pick. I think also Cairns allows me a little bit more freedom for exploration comparative to maybe, let's say, like JR, where he's in Perth. It's a big market club. There's a lot of demand, so it's great where you can go get some high-end imports. But I think maybe there's a little less exploration with some talent at the back end of the bench. where for us, we provide a little bit more opportunities for those young guys because, everyone knows about our limited resources or player spend in that regard. So, look, you sort of know what you want to look for. What also suits my style, because again, there's a lot of talented athletes that maybe don't fit how we want to play. But in Alex's case, when he came up for the trial, he maxed out the vertical jump. We had it set for 1 meter and he cleared it. And so, we didn't even get the personal best because there was no point readjusting it to then readjust it for everybody else. So when you look at his size, he's 6'6", he plays multiple positions and he has an incredible vertical. It's a good start to build on. And so, look, I like to pretend that there's some secret formula to it, but it's just like with everything. If you sort of know what you're looking for and you can sort of back the player, it's up to them obviously to capitalize on it. And in Alex's case, he did.
We said we're going to talk about last night, so let's get into it. The Perth Wildcats, they set up a semi-final series against Melbourne United, and the Phoenix are going to play the winner of the game that's coming up tomorrow between Sydney and Adelaide. The game as a whole, and I'll say it because Josh King said it very loudly in the press conference, there was a lot of free throws being taken from both teams. There was a lot of whistles going on. Hard to try and get momentum in that. But as the game as a whole, especially first half compared to second half, what was your take out of it?
Yeah, I don't know what the record is in the NBL for foul shots, but I think 49 in the first half. And it was really hard for both teams to get a bit of momentum for it. Keanu came out of the gates great at the start and, they built a nice little double-digit lead. And then as we know, and we know he's very capable of it, I thought Angus Glover came off the bench and provided real stability in that Phoenix lineup, which brought it back. Bryce does his bit. I thought the cool part, especially watching Matt Hurt, allowing the game to sort of come to him. I think at one point he made a 3-point play and he was 8 of 9 or 8 of 10 on the field. And that's what I like about Matt Hurt's game is he doesn't necessarily force the issue. But the first team that was obviously able to get 3 or 4 possessions in a row, I think was going to break that thing open. That's sort of what you saw with Perth in the fourth quarter. But yeah, look, a lot of fouls, and naturally there's a little bit of feeling it being a playing game. But, credit to Perth to be able to hold it down in front of their fan base.
The starting run from the Perth Wildcats, when you're a coach sitting back watching other teams go at it, because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking Josh King's calling a timeout soon. He's got to be calling a timeout soon. Perth in front of a home crowd, the energy was there. They're continuing to go on this run. He just held his calm, put in Angus Glover, who was massive. As a coach, do you sit there and think, I'd probably have called a timeout there? Or do you like the, experiment of, we're in this hole, let's see if they can get out of it?
Because I know King, he went for the coach's challenge early, which I don't mind as well, because it's always a bit of a barometer test to see how the game is going to be officiated. I know he did it off an out-of-bounds call. But, you lose a timeout. And then, when Perth went on the run that they did, I think Josh King made a great call in the sense of going, let's bring out someone who is also battle-hardened. Angus Glover's done this before with Kings. We've seen what he's capable of doing. And so, yeah, I think before you burn your second timeout early in the first quarter, you roll with the bench. You know what they're capable of. I know Ben Ayres, another one that can provide that spark, and he had that little shoulder complaint earlier in the game, which was unfortunate, and I hope he bounces back from that. But look, he went with Glover, and Glover provided exactly what we knew he was capable of doing. So I think it was a great play. But yeah, if there wasn't a coach's challenge early, you could definitely look to use your timeout. But I think King made the perfect call, and obviously it went very well for him.
Well, it did. I mean, they put up 67 points in the first half, the highest scoring first half of teams combined in the NBL season so far. But the second half all belonged to the Wildcats, and you mentioned him already, and you know him better than a lot of people. It was Keanu Pinder. Keanu Pinder, a career night. When you're sitting back watching him get to that level that you've seen many times and to take over a big, important game, this was the Keanu Pinder we've all loved to see, and he was unstoppable.
One thing, and I know we're going to look at his stat line from the offensive side of things, and he's always been capable of that. He's such a dynamic center that can score in multiple ways. But for example, like, I know the Perth fan base were really disappointed that Christian Doolittle didn't make Defensive Player of the Year list, and they have a right to make the case for him. But I guess, and maybe I'm a little bit biased in my delivery of this, but when you look at Keanu in terms of a defensive player, he's very underrated as well. So even if you compare him in that Perth lineup, Keanu's got the best defensive rating. He's got the best block percentage. He's got the best steal percentage. Like, he arguably is such an anchor for their defense. And so while he did a great job, on the offensive end and getting on the rim, and, he hit a couple of threes late as well, which was, when he's feeling it and he's up and about, that it looks very comfortable for him. But, you also want to give him praise for what he did defensively, because it was a foul fest in that first half. And again, the first team to sort of lock it down and be able to get some stops without sending on to the foul line was going to make a difference. His verticality at the rim, him in the drops coverage, they got such a dynamic backcourt, Southeast, to be able to play the ball handler in that pick and roll coverage and re-engage back with his man rolling on the rim. I want to give props to KP for the defensive effort that he did last night and what he's done all season.
He was a massive in that era. I mean, they held them just to 38 points in the second half after giving up 67 in the first. But this Perth Wildcats team as a whole, before we quickly preview tomorrow night, it seemed, and balance is a weird word to use when you've got a team that has a 5-time MVP and is scoring 50 just because he likes to do it. But it really looks like with the complementary pieces, Pinder, Doolittle, Dylan Windler's been awesome. You've got Henschel, Ty Webster's come back, and with Bryce Cotton, this looks like a team for Perth out of any other year, maybe in the last 4 years, that can really go deep and contend for a championship.
The cool thing about Bryce Cotton is the MVP that he is he also looks for his teammates. And so when teams start to shift their focus on Bryce and, they might be playing the gaps a little bit. We've seen Illawarra in the past, right? We'll sort of send 1.5 men off the ball, to migrate towards Bryce to sort of clog up the driving lane, or teams might look like Sydney might look to try and blitz or hard show in the on ball. Bryce has no problem moving that ball on. So, this was almost predictable in a sense that Bryce was going to have a good game, but, for team to be successful, it was probably going to be someone else being the top scorer. In this case, it's Keanu. The next game, it could be Doolittle. The next game, it could be Windler. I mean, that is off the back of, yes, the balance on the roster, but also an import who puts the team ahead of himself and understands that, he is an MVP candidate and he does need to score to make this team win. But also when he recognizes someone else is rolling, like KP in that on-ball coverage or around the basket, he'll defer to him and let him have his moment, knowing that it's going to be for the success of the team.
And they did that very well. 122 points in a playing game is incredible. Now, tomorrow night it sets up who the Phoenix will be playing on Sunday. Oh, it's a tough one. I mean, Sydney, we know they're going to be without Xavier Cooks, which is a really big piece for them to be missing against an Adelaide team. They won their last 3 against the Kings. Firstly, do you take any of that into it, or is the postseason completely different? And what are you expecting out of this matchup?
Well, one thing you got to remember is that Sydney are the number one defense. For Cooks being in or out of the lineup and the in and outs that they've had all season, Sydney have been the number one defense for the majority, if not the entire length of this season. And, that's off the back of an incredible man manager and motivator in Brian Gorgeon. So, you take it obviously with a grain of salt, the results during the regular season, but you back yourself in what you're really good at. Now, is there a team that, can go another level in this postseason? And, Sydney's definitely one of those guys, again, off the back of what Gorge can do with this team defensively. Yes, Cooks hurts that. But again, when you talk about a team with depth and length and guys who are able to defend multiple positions like Bull, like Liafa, like Tui, these guys are able to defend and go small ball, defend perimeters, defend the block, mix it up, trap the post, hard show, switch out. And it's their home court, so Sydney's always going to be tough. But on the other side of it, you look at the Adelaide 36ers, who arguably have the best scoring backcourt and a pairing that's able to put up a lot of points very quickly. And between Montrez and Isaac Humphries, they're going to be two tough covers for a team that's going to be down one of their primarily big defenders. Does defense versus a highly talented offense in a one-game elimination is really a flip of a coin.
I'm looking forward to that because I've been preaching that. I know we had an offensive onslaught in NBL 25, but I think defense will hold up in the play. And lastly, Forde, before I let you go, when you get to sit back and watch and not have to try and scheme against trying to slow down a Kendrick Davis or Jalen Adams, who are going to be going head-to-head, a former MVP and a runner-up MVP, does it take a little bit of pressure off being like, man, thank goodness I don't have to try and shut these two down again?
Well, it gives me a moment for my hair to grow back. So a little few more grays, a little bit thinning at the top. Always seems to come back a little bit thicker in the off season. So no, it's good to be able to sit back, obviously enjoy it and watch these games. And hopefully the whistles aren't as free flowing in tomorrow night's game as it was last night. But I think again, you look at the talent of Adelaide and Sydney, it's going to be a fun game. I think Adelaide have got a real good shot here if they make sure that they feed their bigs and reward them with some touches around the rim. I don't know if there's too many answers to try and stop those two bigs in Humphries and Montrez, but it's good to be able to sit back and enjoy it and not have to worry about preparing for anything this weekend.
Forde, we love having you on. Might have to get you back on to break down a couple more games throughout these final series, but I appreciate you chatting in this morning.
Yeah, my schedule's wide open, so I'm available.
All right, we'll get it done. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Don't forget that is coming tomorrow night. A massive game elimination play-in.